All right, let's jump right into it. If you've been feeling, well, maybe just a little bit overwhelmed by the absolute avalanche of technological buzzwords floating around corporate strategies these days, you are in exactly the right place. Today's explainer is essentially your survival guide for modern business. We're going to completely demystify complex concepts, things like AI, machine learning, RPA, and blockchain, and we'll break down exactly how they are driving real, undeniable competitive advantage right now. So let's dive in. To make sense of this massive digital toolbox, we've broken it down into 5 logical steps. We'll start with a digital transformation journey, move on to decoding the data engine, then explore the brains, that's AI and ML. After that, we'll connect it all with automation, IoT, and blockchain, and finally, wrap up with defending the digital frontier.
Starting us off with Part 1, the digital transformation journey. In today's Industry 4.0 era, this is a path literally every business entity has to walk.
So, you have to ask yourself a pretty critical question right out of the gate. Is your business ready to transform, or are you going to be left behind? Today, digitalization isn't just a trend, it's the order of the day. Honestly, survival literally depends on how quickly an organization embraces this transformation. It is no longer just some, nice-to-have upgrade for the IT department to play with. It's absolutely fundamental to how you deliver value. But what do we actually mean when we say digital transformation? The most crucial thing to grasp here is that this isn't just about plugging in fancy new tech. It is a massive cultural shift. It involves what we call transcreating, basically creating entirely new versatile products or business models to replace clunky legacy systems. Often this means utilizing cloud-based ERPs and advanced analytics. When you pull this off successfully, you completely stop fighting overcrowded markets and start operating in newly created blue ocean spaces. You're outmaneuvering competitors by completely changing the game. Moving right along to Part 2, decoding the data engine. Because let's be real, none of this transformation happens without fuel. And in this era, that fuel is data. We aren't just staring at static spreadsheets anymore. We're climbing these 4 distinct steps of data analytics. First up, we have descriptive analytics, which simply tells us what happened. Then, diagnostic analytics goes a layer deeper to figure out why it happened. But here is where it really gets powerful. Predictive analytics uses historical data to forecast what will happen next. Think forecasting sales or predicting customer behavior. And finally, prescriptive analytics literally tells you what specific actions to take to reach your goals. It upgrades a business from mere hindsight to proactive, automated decision-making.
Now, to process those incredibly massive pipelines of unstructured data, human brains simply aren't enough. That brings us to Part 3, the brains, which are artificial intelligence and machine learning.
People throw these terms around interchangeably all the time, particularly in business contexts, but they really shouldn't. Think of it kind of like nesting dolls. Artificial intelligence is the broad, overarching concept of machines imitating human cognition. Tucked inside that is machine learning, which is a specific approach where algorithms learn from sample data to optimize their performance without being explicitly programmed. And nestled right in the very center of that is deep learning, a highly sophisticated, multi-layered subset of ML.
To clear up another huge misconception, let's contrast the AI we actually use today with the AI you see in sci-fi movies. Everything we interact with right now, whether it's weather forecasting algorithms, autonomous driving, or even Siri on your phone, is narrow AI. It's highly specialized and often outperforms humans in efficiency and endurance in one specific area. General AI, which would match human reasoning across all fields, and super AI, which would just completely exceed the best human brains everywhere and make deductions about totally unknown environments, well, those are purely theoretical right now. So you don't need to worry about HOW 9000 taking over your office today.
That being said, the narrow AI we do have is still unbelievably powerful, and that's largely thanks to deep learning. A deep neural network literally mimics the interconnections of the human brain through layers of nodes. Because it has multiple hidden layers between the input and the output, it can ingest completely raw, previously indecipherable data like video or sound, and it automatically figures out the implicit properties. It drastically reduces the need for humans to manually tag and interpret all that data. Let's anchor these concepts in some real-world business value, specifically in finance. Unsupervised computers are handling algorithmic trading in fractions of a second, completely removing human error and indecision. In lending, they're crunching data to accurately predict defaults. In customer service, AI is actively predicting customer churn before it even happens, giving teams a chance to step in and save the relationship.
These algorithms act as an invisible, lightning-fast workforce.
Which brings us perfectly to part 4, automation, IoT, and blockchain. This is where those digital brains we just talked about connect to the physical world and secure our decentralized transactions. First, let's de-jargonize RPA, or robotic process automation. Now, we aren't talking about physical metallic robots wandering around your office building. Think of RPA as a digital workforce made up of software bots. They mimic human-computer interactions, stuff like copying, pasting, scraping data, or logging into apps to handle those highly repetitive, high-volume tasks perfectly. And they never get tired. The benefits go way beyond just cutting costs. It actually improves employee morale because it frees your human talent from doing mind-numbingly boring tasks. Then we have the Internet of Things, or IoT. If AI is the brain, IoT is absolutely the sensory network. These are web-enabled smart devices loaded with sensors that gather real-world data directly from the physical environment. We're talking temperature, equipment running hours, you name it, all happening without human intervention. They feed this incredibly rich, real-time data straight into those machine learning models to make spot-on predictions and optimize processes. And to ensure that the data and transactions flying across this network are actually trustworthy, we use blockchain. I absolutely love this real-world anecdote. The Tea Board of India was facing a major issue with tea adulteration, which was really hurting their market value. By implementing blockchain, which is basically an immutable, shared ledger, they can record every single detail of procurement, manufacturing, and delivery. Meaning, a customer can literally trace their specific cup of tea all the way back to the exact plantation it was grown on. It completely eliminates fraud. But with all this amazing connectivity, there is a massive catch. Part 5. Defending the digital frontier. As our digital engine grows, the shield protecting it has to grow just as fast.
People very often confuse cybersecurity with computer forensics, but the difference is actually critical. Cybersecurity is entirely preventative. It's about creating defensive measures, setting permissions, and designing a network to stop attacks before they ever happen. Computer forensics, on the flip side, is reactionary. It's the cleanup crew. It's the practice of going in after a breach to recover lost data and uncover digital evidence of the crime. You definitely need both, but the ultimate goal is to never actually have to use forensics.
The incredibly good news here is that AI is actually emerging as a phenomenal friend in keeping cybercriminals away. It's not just a marketing tool. It can perform rapid pattern recognition across millions of network activities in real time. So if a historically frugal customer suddenly makes a massive, highly unusual credit card purchase on the other side of the world, AI can instantly flag it as fraud, shut it down, and send an alert without producing annoying false positives. It streamlines security and protects a brand's reputation without even breaking a sweat. So we've covered a ton of ground today, from the 4 steps of data analytics to deep neural networks and all the way through to IoT and AI-driven cybersecurity. But I want to leave you with this provocative thought. Which of these emerging technologies poses the biggest threat to your current status quo? And conversely, which represents the absolute greatest opportunity to carve out your own blue ocean? Take some time to reflect on your organization's digital metamorphosis, because, ready or not, the journey is already underway. We're going to demystify complex digital strategies by looking at some incredibly successful real-world applications of artificial intelligence and fintech. We hear buzzwords like AI, machine learning, and blockchain all the time, right? But what do they actually look like when they're put to work out in the wild? How do they fundamentally change a business, an entire industry, or even just a single person's life? Well, today we're looking at the hard evidence. We're cutting through the hype to break down how leading organizations are leveraging these digital tools to solve everything from massive logistical nightmares to hyper-local social challenges. To start things off, let's pose a provocative question that perfectly captures the extreme scale of the digital strategy spectrum we're covering. On one side of the globe, how exactly does an e-commerce giant physically process a mind-boggling $248 billion in transactions without the whole system just completely collapsing? And then, on the exact opposite end of that spectrum, how can a few lines of code on a smartphone ensure that a child in India doesn't drop out of primary school? Honestly, it sounds a bit like magic, but as you'll see, it's purely the result of highly effective, highly targeted digital strategies. So, here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at AI at scale with Alibaba. Second, we'll spend a minute defining fintech. Third, we'll explore unified payments through Razorpay. And finally, we'll wrap up with purpose-driven tech at Shiksha Finance. All right, let's jump straight into Section 1, AI at scale, featuring Alibaba. $248 billion
Alibaba's smart warehouse was born out of absolute necessity to handle that astronomical transaction volume. To put that into perspective for you, that is a transaction volume larger than eBay and Amazon combined. When a company hits that sheer volume of products needing to be packaged, moved, and shipped, human employees literally just cannot keep up. It becomes practically impossible. So, Alibaba's willingness to go all in on AI and machine learning in their warehouses was exactly what allowed them to stay competitive, efficiently packaging and shipping out products at a speed that humans simply couldn't match.
But it doesn't stop at just moving boxes. Alibaba is harnessing AI across their entire ecosystem. They use smart product search and recommendation algorithms to anticipate exactly what a consumer might be looking for at any given second. They use customer service chatbots and image matching to create these tailor-made, highly optimized shopping experiences. And honestly, they're just scratching the surface here. As they deepen their research into machine learning, they're rolling out applications in a ton of different ways, ranging from complex financing models to advanced facial recognition.
Now, stepping back to look at the broader geopolitical context, Alibaba's rise is happening alongside massive government investment. China hopes to build a $1 trillion AI industry by 2030, putting them on a path where they could potentially overtake the United States as the world's technology leader. It's a massive global race, and it is actively reshaping the economic landscape.
Moving right along to Section 2, let's quickly define exactly what we mean by fintech, or financial technology.
At its core, fintech is simply software and tech designed to simplify financial transactions, making them way more accessible and affordable for both businesses and consumers. It's a huge umbrella. It covers straightforward mobile banking and peer-to-peer appointment apps you probably use every single day, things like Venmo, Cash App, or PaySend. It also covers automated portfolio managers like Wealthfront, Betterment, and FundsIndia.com, as well as digital trading platforms like Robinhood, Upstox ProMobile, and Zerodha Kite. The ultimate goal here is to modify, enhance, or completely automate financial services to remove all that old-school friction from the system. But fintech goes way beyond just splitting a dinner bill on an app. It also encompasses the development and trading of cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, Dogecoin, and Ether. This side of the industry utilizes big data and complex blockchain networks, which house encrypted transactions to facilitate highly secure exchanges across internal networks. It's a radical departure from traditional banking infrastructure, creating decentralized ledgers that give us entirely new ways to store and exchange value.
And at the institutional level, there is a literal global race for digital currency happening right now. The People's Bank of China actually has a ready prototype for a China's digital currency operating on a two-tier platform. That means Layer 1 is managed by the central bank and Layer 2 by commercial banks. This is definitely a massive development to keep an eye on, especially when you contrast it with the United States, where political groups have historically been very critical of private cryptocurrency initiatives like Facebook's early Libra project. The global approaches to regulating and adopting digital money really do vary wildly.
All right, Section 3. Let's look at how payments get unified, focusing on a company called Razorpay.
Started by Harshil Mathur and Shashank Kumar back in 2014, Razorpay solves a very real, very massive B2B problem: fragmented payment systems. Just imagine trying to run a business in India. Your customers might want to pay you with Jio Money, MobiKwik, Airtel Money, FreeCharge, Ola Money, PayZapp, UPI, or just standard credit and debit cards. Trying to manage all of those individual streams is a complete nightmare. Razorpay steps in with a single suite of products that lets companies seamlessly receive, process, and disperse payments across all these modes. Plus, it handles client invoices, receives regular fees, and even lets businesses take advantage of working capital loans, all from one unified dashboard. It's a real game changer.
And finally, Section 4. Let's look at purpose-driven tech through the lens of Shiksha Finance.
Shiksha Finance is India's leading education finance lending firm, and they operate on this absolutely incredible mission-driven mandate to ensure children stay in the classroom. By funding parents directly for school fees, their explicit goal is reducing school dropout rates. The student loans provided through their platform could be used by parents to pay for all sorts of crucial educational necessities. We're talking tuition, sure, but also books, uniforms, shoes, and even luggage.
And looking at the numbers, this specific microdebt range, between 10,000 and 30,050 rupees, shows you exactly how fintech can scale right down to the personal level. These aren't massive corporate loans. These are highly targeted, accessible loans provided to parents that have to be returned within a very manageable 6 to 10-month window. Because they utilize digital financial technologies, Shiksha Finance can process these microloans efficiently and affordably, something traditional brick-and-mortar banks often struggle to do with any kind of profitability.
What's really cool is that Shiksha Finance doesn't just stop at the parents. They also offer loans directly to educational institutions themselves. They help schools develop buildings, buy properties, and secure working capital. It just goes to show that their digital strategy supports the entire educational ecosystem, from a student who needs a new uniform right up to the school needing a new roof.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought. We've seen how Alibaba used AI to survive $248 billion in transactions. We've seen how Razorpay used fintech to unify a deeply fractured business landscape, and how Shiksha Finance used it to literally keep kids in school. These aren't just tech stories, right? They're survival and optimization stories. So consider how the digital strategies we've explored today might soon reflect the future of your own profession. Because whether you are moving mountains of inventory or processing microloans, the digital revolution is already here.
We're taking a pretty complex idea and breaking it down into clear visual steps so we can actually wrap our heads around it. We are looking at a concept that honestly often gets completely lost in all of the cryptocurrency hype, blockchain. But we're going to strip away all those buzzwords today. Instead, we're focusing strictly on its fundamental business definition and really getting into why it's totally transforming how organizations operate.
So I want you to just think about this question for a second. What if everyone shared one truth? In the business world, literally everything relies on accurate information being received as fast as possible. But traditional systems, they're fragmented. What if every partner, every supplier, and every client saw the exact same reliable data at the exact same time? Well, that is exactly the promise we're looking at today. Okay, let's dive right into this. We've got a simple three-part roadmap for today. Number 1, the what, the foundation. Number 2, the how, the mechanics. And number 3, the why, the value proposition. All right, let's start right at the beginning with section 1, the what, the foundation. The core definition is actually surprisingly straightforward. A blockchain is a shared, immutable ledger that facilitates the process of recording transactions and tracking assets in a business network. That is the entire essence of it right there. It's essentially just a super advanced, highly transparent way to track assets and record information permanently. It's not magic, right? It's really just a much better way of keeping records.
And when we talk about tracking assets, we literally mean anything of value. Virtually anything can be tracked and traded on this network. That includes your tangible, physical assets, like houses, cars, cash, and land. But it also includes intangible assets, things like intellectual property, patents, copyrights, and branding. The network handles the whole shebang with equal precision, which massively reduces risk and cuts costs for absolutely everyone involved.
Which really brings us to a fundamental premise here. Business runs on information, and blockchain is absolutely ideal for delivering that information because it provides immediate, shared, and completely transparent data. And crucially, it's stored on a ledger that can only be accessed by permissioned network members. So the real takeaway here is that this creates a single view of the truth. A blockchain network can track orders, payments, accounts, production, you name it. Because members share this one unified perspective, everyone gets to see all the details of a transaction from end to end. That kind of unprecedented transparency, it gives greater confidence, and honestly, it opens up entirely new efficiencies and opportunities.
Okay, moving right along to section 2, the how, the mechanics.
So there are 3 really important components that make a blockchain network actually function. Number 1, distributed ledger technology. Number 2, immutable records. And number 3, smart contracts. Let's demystify exactly what each of these means for a business.
This is a great way to look at it. It brilliantly illustrates the stark contrast between the old way of doing things and the new way. Traditional networks are totally plagued by duplication of effort, and they're highly vulnerable to reversible errors. But contrast that with blockchain networks, where transactions are recorded only once, creating totally immutable, permanent records.
Now, what's really fascinating is how distributed ledger technology actually solves that whole duplication problem. It is a shared ledger that's accessible to all network participants. Because everyone is looking at the exact same distributed record, transactions are only recorded once. Think about how many times different departments in a company keep completely separate spreadsheets for the exact same event. This shared access just completely wipes out that duplication of effort. Next up, we have immutable records. This means absolutely no participant can change or tamper with a transaction after it's been recorded to that shared ledger.
Now, you might be wondering, well, what happens if a transaction record has a genuine mistake in it? Well, you can't just hit delete. Instead, a brand new transaction has to be added to reverse the error, and then both of those transactions are kept entirely visible for the record.
And the third and final component is the smart contract. A smart contract is stored directly on the blockchain, and it basically acts as a set of rules. It defines specific conditions and then executes them automatically. So, for example, a smart contract could define the exact conditions needed for a corporate bond transfer to go through, or it could include the specific terms required for a travel insurance claim to actually pay out.
But notice the absolute key feature here: executed automatically. Because a smart contract completely removes the need for manual processing and human intervention once those rules are met, it paves the way for the absolute fastest possible transactions.
And that brings us to Section 3, the why, the business benefits.
Let's look at how all these mechanics actually build into 3 major outcomes for organizations. Step 1 is increased trust. Step 2 is greater security. And Step 3 is increased efficiencies. Let's break down exactly why each of these happens.
First up, increased trust. Blockchain is only utilized by members who are within a defined network. This structure practically guarantees to those members that the data they're receiving is both accurate and timely. Plus, because these records are confidential, they're only ever shared with network members to whom you have specifically granted access. You are totally in control of who sees your truth.
Second is greater security. This huge bump in security happens because consensus on data accuracy is literally required from all network members. So the crucial point here is that because all validated transactions are recorded permanently and require that consensus, the system is just incredibly robust. No one, literally not even a system administrator with top-level access, can simply go in and delete a transaction. And finally, increased efficiencies. With a distributed ledger shared among all members, those agonizing, time-wasting meetings where 2 departments argue over whose record is correct, they are entirely eliminated. When you combine that shared ledger with smart contracts that automate the transactions, businesses end up saving a massive amount of time and money. So we've seen today how blockchain provides a single, secure, and highly efficient view of the truth. We've stripped away the mystery to reveal what is really just a highly practical business tool. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought. How might a shared, immutable ledger change your own industry? Think about the friction and the delays in your daily workflows that could be completely eliminated by immediate, transparent, and permanent information sharing.
We're zooming way past digital money. We're going to explore how blockchain is quietly working behind the scenes right now to fix some of the most annoying and, honestly, the most costly problems in our everyday lives. So let's kick things off with a question that might sound a bit weird at first. What exactly do annoying spam calls, the ones that always seem to interrupt your dinner, and your morning cup of tea have in common? I know, it sounds like the setup to a bad joke, but believe it or not, both of these totally unrelated parts of your day are currently being transformed and protected by blockchain technology. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll be looking at stopping phone spam, saving the tea industry, tracking the ad dollar, streamlining global HR, and finally exploring the future of blockchain. Let's jump right into part 1, stopping phone spam, the accountability fix. Okay, let's look at a pretty wild real-world case study out of India, where the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India just told all telecommunication companies that they need to adopt blockchain. Look, right now our networks are plagued by anonymous telemarketers, right? They're incredibly hard to track. But under this new proposal going into effect this December, the network fundamentally changes so that only registered users can engage in telemarketing. Basically, the people making these calls can't just hide in the shadows anymore. Now, realistically, this doesn't guarantee that phone spam is just going to vanish overnight, but what it does do is force accountability. Because everything is logged on a permanent ledger, blockchain will actually allow the appropriate agencies to track down and locate the perpetrators based on their unalterable digital footprint. And the infrastructure is already there. Roshan Matthews, the Director General at the Cellular Operations Authority of India, pointed out that the technology is fully in place. The real next step is just educating the public on how to set up their do not distort preferences. Telcos are actually thrilled about these developments, and the big hope here is that coupling artificial intelligence with blockchain is going to finally rectify the major systemic flaws in telecommunications. Moving right along to Section 2, saving the tea industry, the traceability fix. Let's pivot to a totally different sensory experience. The Tea Board of India is dealing with a massive crisis right now. The overall quality of tea has been tanking because of rampant adulteration. Bad actors are mixing in junk, making it incredibly difficult to distinguish good premium tea leaves from the bad ones. Because of this, the tea board, plantation owners, and manufacturers are being forced to severely devalue their product. And frankly, if they don't fix it, it's going to run them out of business sooner or later. So they desperately need a way to prove the purity of what they sell. Through an expression of interest, the tea board made it clear they intend to adopt end-to-end technology to force transparency. Here's how it plays out. Blockchain technology will record all the details pertaining to procurement at the plantation, the entire manufacturing process, and finally the delivery of the end product to the customer. It securely locks in the truth at every single stage. The Tea Board is looking into the total digitization of the tea trade using blockchain traceability. Think about what that actually means for you. This technology will enable you, the customer, to trace the exact origin of your morning tea straight back to the plantation. Plus, it accurately records any cases of adulteration. If bad leaves get swapped in, the ledger shows everyone exactly where the breach happened. All right, on to Section 3, tracking the ad dollar, the efficiency fix. If you've ever wondered whether blockchain was just a passing fad, you really need to look at the massive multinational corporations getting involved. Giant MNCs like Unilever, Kellogg, Pfizer, and AT&T have all signed on as anchor brands for IBM's pilot consortium, which they're calling the IBM MediaOcean blockchain. What these giants are building is a trust-verified chain. Digital media advertising is notoriously complex, but this platform brings immediate transparency, trust, and serious cost reduction to the reconciliation process. It literally creates a verified chain from every single dollar spent all the way to the end user, cutting out several massive inefficiencies in the marketplace. Next up is Section 4, streamlining global HR, internal efficiency. This application hits super close to home for anyone who has ever navigated the job market. In a really fascinating recent use case, a large HR hiring agency is deploying a blockchain-enabled hiring platform purely to streamline their internal processes. They're using it to guarantee the highly secure uploading of job seekers' profiles and to safely manage how those profiles are distributed among various platforms. And finally, Section 5, the future of blockchain, the horizon. Check out this number, $430 million. According to the research, blockchain adoption in just the agricultural, food, and related industries is projected to hit roughly $430 million by the year 2023. The financial momentum behind these practical applications is just explosive, and efforts are rapidly multiplying to gainfully apply this tech to things like agriculture and environmental management. The core impetus for this massive industry adoption really boils down to a few critical business needs. Companies are desperate for exact traceability and tracking, highly secure payments, permanent data retention and accessibility, and flawless risk and complaint management. And as we've seen, all of this is greatly enabled through blockchain. So, I'll leave you with this thought. If a blockchain can confidently trace a single tea leaf from an Indian plantation all the way to your mug, and if it has the power to finally hold anonymous phone spammers accountable, what major inefficiency in your life will it solve next? We are truly just scratching the surface of how this technology is going to reshape our everyday world. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer.